Hi, Martin Root with Project Heaven on Earth. I subscribe to a service called Google Alert, which tells me every day where the phrase heaven on earth appears in English media around the world. About a month ago, I got a notice of a song called Heaven on Earth, sung by this woman named Lauren Lanzaretta. I'd never heard of her. I went to her website, I listened, I loved it. I played it for my wife. We both loved it. It struck a deep, deep chord in us. And so I contacted Lauren. I said, Lauren, I'd love to do an interview with you. And here's Lauren. Welcome, Lauren.
Hi, Martin. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
You have a new album called Deliverance, and one
Yep.
of the songs is called Heaven on Earth. Tell me about that song.
Yeah, so Deliverance was a album that I wrote over the course of probably 4 years. And while I didn't know it then while I was writing it, it was sort of a progression of, you know, becoming self-aware and of becoming conscious. And so Heaven on Earth was one of the songs. It's the second song on the album. And really, it's just a prayer to God for that to be lifted to that new self awareness, new enlightenment, but not really knowing how to get there. So that's sort of like, an early stage of enlightenment in the album.
In the song, I just want to read some of the lyrics. Lord, let me see heaven, heaven, heaven. Oh, let me see heaven, heaven, heaven. Oh, let me see heaven, heaven, heaven. Let me see heaven on earth. And I counted, and you say heaven 9 times. And then
Mm-hmm.
in the last line, you say heaven on earth. That
Right.
transition, it was very powerful for my wife and I. Talk to me about the transition.
Well, that's great to hear that. I mean, I think that a lot of my music, even from writing when I was a younger girl, has been almost like a chanting. Like, I love leading worship music, and I think it was just that almost like chorus of, you know, longing and asking God, like, let me see heaven, let me see heaven. It was a chanting that finally led to the final words, which were let me see heaven on earth, where I'm at now. So
When you wrote this song and this album,
mhm.
you said over 4 years, Lauren, there's an expression of a desire. It seemed to me that this fits into a larger longing for you in terms of
Right.
the kind of life and the kind of awareness and consciousness you want. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, it was sort of, I didn't even realize that this progression was happening while I was writing these songs. So really it was like an expression of songwriting in real time and then living out that change, at the same time. So God was really doing a work in my life, and I feel like, these songs, sometimes I listen to them and I'm like, man, like, how did I even write that? Like, what was I like, where was I? And it was truly just like, it's an unexplained just inspiration that God, puts inside of me from my soul. And it was a process of, he loves me too much to leave me where I was. He really wanted to enlighten me and take me to a new level. So as I wrote Heaven on Earth, some of the lyrics, I say, world, don't make me harder, life, don't make me cruel, let me learn the lesson and not become a fool. It's really about not repeating our patterns, right? And learning that lesson so that we can move forward into a new consciousness and become self-aware enough to really become aware of our thoughts and why we're reacting, and of the things that we're doing that we're not aware of. So, let me learn the lesson. And it's not the past, it's not the future, it's in the present moment that we're really learning to do this. So that's really what Heaven on Earth is about.
And so that's, you just gave me a thought here. So to
Yeah.
step out of that past, to step out of that hurt and that pain
Right.
into a heaven on earth, how how would you know that? Have you had heaven on earth experiences before? And yet
Um,
the soul does know it.
it does. And, a lot of it came from, God putting people in my life to, and it mirrors, like my relationship really was when I learned the most about myself, because I was being reflected back who I was. And I didn't like some of it, so it was like when we have those mirrors in front of us and we're able to say like, wow, that's how that feels, or this is how I react. And it's a slow process of really just learning, um, uh, really just learning how to react in ways that are, you express self-love and not judging yourself, because when you judge yourself, you judge others, and when you judge others, you judge yourself. So it's really like something you're not aware of while it's happening, but I really think through other people is really how we get to that point.
Very beautiful. So then let's move now to the 6 songs, one of
Sure.
which is Heaven on Earth, because there's a flow to those. Can you go through
Right.
each one and just give, I mean, not a long detail, but just
Sure.
a snapshot of each one, and then how the flow builds overall?
Deliverance is a 6-song EP, and it's a story from beginning to end, and it starts with a song called Burden, which really is about repeating patterns. It's a prayer to God. It's like, God, why am I going through this? Like, it's sort of you feel like a victim. And, some of the words are, I feel like I'm doing time trapped in the walls of my mind. Ask the Lord, got no response. So I'm going to chant the chorus line. And chanting the chorus line, the chorus line is the main part of the song that always gets repeated. So when you're chanting that, it's sort of like symbolic for repeating the same mistakes in your life. So that's kind of where I was. And as I progressed, the next song was Heaven on Earth. And I sort of started becoming aware that, okay, this is a problem. Like, God, let me see. I hadn't seen yet. I'm not aware yet. But Lord, let me see. Bring me to heaven. Bring heaven to me on here on earth. The third song is called Something Won't Let Me Drown, which is very much a calling out to God, like almost in anger, in like righteous anger. Like some of the lyrics are, I got chains no one can break. Like, God, you can't even break my chains. Like, I'm just stuck here. I'm here. And why am I like this? But in the back of your mind, something won't let you drown. There's a presence there that is peaceful, and you just have to keep moving towards that. The fourth song is called Calm the Storm. And really, it's based on the scripture in the Bible where Jesus is on the boat with his disciples, and there's this big storm, and the disciples go up to him, and Jesus is sleeping, and they're like, trying to wake him up. They're like, don't you realize we're going through this storm right now? And Jesus wakes up and he says, don't you realize that I am God? Like, I am with you. And in those storms in our life, we have to realize like, uh, God is in control, really. And it's sort of like that surrender to fear. Like, I'm surrendering my control of my life to know that God knows better for me than I know for myself. Um, the fifth song is called Illuminate. And the lyric that really is pulled from that song, it's let the spirit say to the heart, illuminate.
Mm,
um
mm.
which is, our spirit, the mind, body, and soul is connected. And when our spirit, which is, I feel like, connected to God, truly, our spirit is one with God. When it's saying and it's speaking to the heart, and then we can listen to our heart, so that's really what, in the process of being illuminated and allowing yourself to illuminate. And then the sixth and final song, called Higher Ground, is really about that where you're to the point where you're like, okay, I'm ready to be elevated and enlightened. I'm ready for a new kind of love. The song says, lift me up, set me on higher ground. And really God is just, it's to the point where you're finally self-aware, you're aware of your thoughts, you're aware of your patterns, and you can truly allow God to set you on that higher ground. So it's this journey from, being unconscious to conscious, really, and becoming enlightened.
What I love about it is you're weaving both the religious faith-based and the consciousness spirituality-based together
Absolutely.
in these 6 songs, and quite unique. And it's unique to put both of those, because we usually think of those as completely separate, one world,
Right.
another world. No, and you're putting it together.
They're the same. They're one and the same. And if you don't know, you're not aware of, the magnificence of God, because God isn't just, it's not a fear-based thing, it's a love-based thing. And we can't interpret God through our sort of flawed human thinking. We have to bring our thinking up to God's way of thinking. So it shouldn't be separated, really. And I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with that, like the different terminologies, but I mean, it's really just who Jesus was, becoming conscious and enlightened was what Jesus wanted us all to become.
So if you're watching this and you have issues about faith, I ask you just to drop them and listen to what she's saying from her spiritual center. And if you're faith-based and a little worried about the oozy-woozy spiritual base, listen to that. So what I'm asking for is this bridging consciousness that you're so beautifully speaking about. I want to take this. First of all, thank you for that. It's the hero's journey that you're speaking about here. There's another issue at a higher level for me, which is there are 3 fundamental issues for me that seem to be that are going on now. We have the pandemic,
right?
We have the environmental issue, and we have, God forbid, the threat of nuclear weapons. Each of those 3 have the potential to wipe us as humanity out. And so I think there's this new consciousness arising in the world, heaven on earth being one very, obviously for me and for many, many others, and you, an important factor. And for me, I see your 6 songs and the whole idea of deliverance. Listen to that language, deliverance, this larger context. How does that strike you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like where we're at, right? Many people are being led by fear. And so, fear is you begin to judge, you begin to judge other people, which in turn you begin to judge yourself. And it's a cycle of, it makes you hate people. I fear that they're going to do this to me. I'm going to get my guns and I'm going to protect myself, when really we should be opening our hearts, and just sort of like take a deep breath. Like if we lead with love, others will respond with love, and it's a peaceful feeling, because nothing, there's nothing really you can fear when you lead your life with a spirit-based way of thinking and looking at the souls and spirits and hearts of other people, instead of how threatening they are or how different they are. And really, because we are all connected, whatever we do ultimately affects our neighbor. That's why the Bible says, love your neighbor. I mean, that's like, the two biggest things in the Bible are love God and love your neighbor. I mean, that's what God commands. And so there's a reason for that. It's, if you truly love God, I just read in my Bible, when I was reading the Bible this morning, if you love God, you cannot love God and hate your brother or sister. It doesn't work. You have to learn ultimately how to love your brother and sister. If not, you don't love God. And that's the evidence of your love for God.
All I have to say to you is thank you. Thank you for being a heaven maker. If people want to find out more, we're going to put a link to the Heaven on Earth song. How can they get in touch with you? Your website?
Yeah, my website, laurenlanzaretta.com. Deliverance, you can stream it anywhere you can buy or stream music. It's also available on vinyl, which you can buy on my website as well. And there's some other merchandise on there. So just check my website out. And I'd love to connect with people. I love creating just relationships with people and, open, honest conversations. So just feel free to reach out. I love to hear from you.
How can they do that? Do you want to give us your email rather?
Um, sure. It's
Or off the
Lauren.
website?
Yeah, it's on the website.
Perfect.
Yeah, you
Perfect.
just
All right, we'll do that.
for sure.
We'll put all the links. Lauren, thank you so much for this. Thank you for really a great gift to humanity. I mean, it's if you think about the word deliverance,
Absolutely.
deliverance out of this craziness
Right.
into the new land. So thank you so
Thank you.
much.
And thank you, Martin. I really, honor you for having me on the show today and doing, leading with love and doing something like Project Heaven on Earth that can give people like me, a voice to speak. So I definitely appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you, Lauren, so much. Thank you.